Good evening. In a world that feels increasingly volatile, trying to pinpoint every single threat facing the United States is a monumental, if not impossible, task. The landscape of risk is not a static list. It's a dynamic, interconnected web where one challenge often fuels another. Threats evolve, they mutate, and what seems distant one day can become an urgent crisis the next. What one expert considers a primary danger, another might see as a secondary effect. So tonight we're not going to pretend to have a definitive, all-encompassing list. That would be a disservice to the complexity of the challenges we face. Instead, what I want to do is provide a clear-eyed overview, a categorized framework of the most significant and widely recognized threats on the horizon for 2025. This isn't just my opinion, this is based on the unclassified assessments from those tasked with our nation's security every single day. The U.S. intelligence community, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Homeland Security, supplemented by rigorous academic analysis. We'll be looking at the big picture, focusing on the national-level threats that have the potential to impact all of us, rather than every localized risk or individual challenge. The goal here is not to alarm, but to inform. Understanding the nature of these threats, from great power competition to the vulnerabilities within our own society, is the essential first step. It's about looking at the facts, understanding the stakes, and beginning the conversation about how we, as a nation, can build the resilience needed to navigate the uncertain road ahead. We have to look at these issues directly, without blinking. So let's get started. China's rapid military modernization, economic coercion, and vast intellectual property theft challenge America's long-held strategic and technological advantages globally. Russia leverages formidable nuclear capabilities, sophisticated cyber warfare, and persistent disinformation campaigns to undermine NATO and sow discord in democracies. Iran's pursuit of nuclear capabilities, advanced missile development, and support for proxy militias create a constant threat to regional stability. North Korea's defiant nuclear and ballistic missile programs, coupled with its brazen cybercrime, continue to destabilize the entire Indo-Pacific region. The persistent threat from groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, along with the rise of homegrown violent extremists, remains a deadly concern. The dangerous spread of nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons to rogue states and non-state actors heightens the risk of catastrophic conflict. Adversaries increasingly use economic tools, from trade manipulation to debt trap diplomacy, to gain leverage and, challenge U.S. influence and prosperity. Our critical over-reliance on foreign nations, especially adversaries for essential goods like pharmaceuticals and microchips, creates, honestly, a serious national vulnerability. The sheer scale of the national debt poses a long-term systemic risk to our economic growth, global standing, and, national security. There's a relentless campaign by adversaries to steal American intellectual property and dominate emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and quantum computing that is, honestly, already underway. Our power grids, water systems, and financial networks are becoming more and more digitized, which makes them, prime targets for potentially crippling state-sponsored cyberattacks. Deepening partisan divides are eroding social cohesion and trust in institutions, which in turn makes the country a lot more susceptible to unrest and foreign manipulation. Threats from ideologically motivated individuals and groups, spanning the political spectrum, pose a direct and lethal danger to American communities. State-sponsored hackers, ransomware gangs, and cyber terrorists constantly probe for weaknesses in government, corporate, and personal digital defenses. Porous borders enable transnational criminal organizations to traffic illicit drugs and human beings, fueling violence and addiction across the country. Coordinated efforts, both foreign and domestic, to undermine faith in our elections, judiciary, and free press threaten the very foundation of our republic. Acting as a threat multiplier, climate change fuels instability through extreme weather, resource scarcity, and new geopolitical conflicts over territory. Our interconnected world remains acutely vulnerable to naturally emerging diseases, accidental lab releases, and the potential for deliberate biological attacks. So, the ongoing loss of biodiversity, critical water scarcity, and widespread pollution, all of these issues, directly threaten food security, economic stability, and human health. Foreign adversaries weaponize information, launching sophisticated campaigns to sow discord, amplify division, and erode faith in democracy itself. The increasing competition and weaponization of space poses a direct threat to United States satellites essential for communication, navigation, and intelligence. Global conflict, economic collapse, and climate change are driving mass migration on an unprecedented scale, straining resources and fueling political instability. As we've just seen, these threats don't exist in a vacuum. They are deeply interconnected. A changing climate can fuel mass migration, which can be exploited by transnational criminals. Political polarization at home can be amplified by foreign disinformation campaigns, making us more vulnerable to our adversaries. This complex web means there are no simple, siloed solutions. The only effective path forward is to build systemic resilience in our infrastructure, in our economy, in our institutions, and in our society. It requires a holistic approach that recognizes how one vulnerability can cascade into another. But it's crucial to remember this. A list of threats is not a declaration of defeat. The United States possesses immense strengths: our innovative spirit, our economic power, our democratic ideals, and a vast network of alliances. We have faced profound challenges before, and have always found the capacity to adapt and overcome. Our ability to openly discuss and debate these threats, as we are doing right now, is itself a core strength that our adversaries do not share. Acknowledging a vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's the first and most critical step toward addressing it. Ultimately, how we prioritize these threats can depend on our perspective, our politics, and the time frame we're considering. But the goal of this deep dive was not to dictate a priority list. It was to foster a shared understanding of the challenges on the horizon. Because only by identifying these threats clearly, by seeing them for what they are, can we begin the difficult but necessary work of strengthening our defenses, fostering unity, and ensuring our nation is prepared for whatever comes next. Thanks for watching.